playing with confidence. Surges it inside 50.
Inside 50, good hands.
Drilling it into centre half forward. That was end-to-end football at its best.
Back-to-back goals either side of quarter time.
They have done it, the Bulldogs!
I'd find somebody for you. There ain't no wall I will run through. In your corner when I'm ringing the bell. Come hell or high water. I'd find somebody for you.
Whoa! Was that a dramatic weekend or what? It's left plenty of heart attacks around the state of WA and leaving a few breathless. Hello everybody, welcome along to our Monday night edition of Around the WAFL. And what a big weekend it was, and we're going to break it all down for you here tonight on YouTube and where you get your podcast. First of all, sincere apologies to all our fans and listeners for no episode last Thursday night. The flu completely put me out, and I'll send my sincere apologies. But we're back in action, and what a time to come back to. Big WAFL weekend and a huge WAFLW preliminary final that had just about everything. My name's Paul Persick. Great to have your company. And alongside me, rumour has it that he needed 2 ambulances to cart him off Revo Fitness Stadium after Sunday. Ethan Roth. Rothy, first of all, and I want you to be honest, how are you and how's the heart rate?
G'day, Paul. Glad to hear you're better. And not enough superlatives to really sum up the weekend, particularly Sunday. So as we'll talk to in depth, Claremont not featuring in the grand final for the first time since 2021. Straight sets, and East Fremantle, the surprise packets perhaps of the year, into the big dance, which I don't think many people saw coming in the pre-season.
Well, they came from nowhere, didn't they? You know, especially after all their off-season issues, a lot of player turnover, controversy, and now they're at the grand final. Simply amazing. Will that go down as the greatest WAFL final there has been in recent years, given the storyline behind it, the drama and the action on the field? I know we'll talk about it in a bit more detail shortly, but would that go down as one of the greatest finals in WAFLW history?
I think so. I think it has to, yeah. The narrative around close finals in WAFLW continues. Last year was obviously 4 points combined margin, and this year, 6 points in one game, but really, it could have gone either way. The ball was deep in 50 of Claremont for a fair while there, and East Fremantle stuck fat in the end, so thoroughly deserved to go through to the big dance, as we'll discuss with their coach very shortly.
And it continues another drama-filled final series. 1.4 points, then 6 points. Will we get closer on Sunday at Fremantle Oval? Only time will tell. Later on in the show, we have got South Fremantle coach Craig White to chat about their big derby win over East Fremantle last Saturday and their crunch game against Peel Thunder, which will serve as an early elimination final in round 20. And by gee, that is going to be a rip-snorter of a game. It's all thanks to the fine folks at Grants Car Stereo Morley, District Promotions down at Eastvic Park, Sullivan Logistics supporting WA football, and of course over 30 years of operation in West Australia, and of course Front Row Screen Sport, who have done another great season of WAFL coverage thus far and a big final series coming up. Well, let's start off with the man of the moment. David Eames, in his first year as East Fremantle WAFLW coach, has guided the side from nowhere to a grand final. After all the controversy in the off-season, all the player turnover and the low expectations on the side, they continue to rise above and book their spot in Sunday's decider against Swan Districts, and he joins us here on Around the WAFL. David, how are you, mate, and has it sunk in yet that your side's through to a grand final?
Don't know about the grand final. It's sunk in. We're back to work. We're back at training right now, literally. We'll start in about 10 minutes' time. So, I said to them after the game, the good news is you're in the grand final. The bad news is training tomorrow. See you there.
You'd up in the intensity on grand final week, wouldn't you? Because the pressure's always going to be there for both clubs that are in a grand final. How are you and the players going to take it this week? Because, most of the Sharks that are still at the club have been used to that feeling.
Yeah, look, it's always an equation. What do you do in a game preparation week, and grand final obviously is what it is. So there's no bigger game to prepare for. But for us, and we talked about it after the game, when I asked the girls to really take their own process on this right from the end of the game. And that literally is, we need you to be healthy and happy, ready to play Sunday. So whatever that looks like for each of them is probably a bit different. We'll do some stuff. Tonight is literally a recovery session. We'll just do a bit of movement, a bit of fun. Wednesday, we'll do our normal training block. It won't be as intense as we probably have had periods through the season. The last thing we want now is somebody who's a bit sore to be making it any worse. Friday, we'll do a captain's run and do some specific preparation for the game ahead. So that's our normal week, really, for a Sunday game. Yes, grand final, so we'll probably do a couple of things, but it won't be a heavy week by any stretch.
You must be super proud of the team. Claremont, the benchmark. They've obviously been in every grand final since 2021. They were going for the three-peat. They go in warm favourites and you knock them off. You must be super proud. Obviously, the captain kicks the winning goal, quite fitting in the end there. But for a large part of extra time, I mean, the ball was deep inside the 50 and all Claremont had to do was score. So would have been real heart-in-the-mouth stuff there. And I guess a sense of, you could only do so much as a coach.
Yeah, look, it's funny. We've had plenty of games like this in some ways, and talk about being proud of the group. Yes, absolutely. And the back line in particular has been amazing. Everybody says that's our strength. It is. We know it. We use it. We play with it. We make sure that we've got it the way we want it to be. I jokingly said I wouldn't bother trying to borrow money off our backline players because they're the stingiest people on the planet. They won't even concede a point most of the time. So they are really good at what they do. I place a lot of faith and trust in them. I don't really coach them a whole lot. Mac Webb coming in has been an outstanding addition for us. They've blended together so well without a lot of coaching work. It's really been a natural fit between them. So they're fantastic. And you talked about the year and how it's sort of evolved, and that's where people like Tiani as captain have been outstanding. They've just been such great leaders and role models for the rest of the group. They lead by example and by their actions. She did it again.
Yep, she sure did. And it's been a bit of a move where, you cast your mind back a fortnight ago, you threw a forward to kick the winner against West Perth, and that happened again. I mean, talk us to that, I guess, quite versatile, and being able to have a player like that you can throw forward. I'm sure you'd love to keep her in the back line as well, but must be really nice to have that versatility option.
Yeah, it is, and it's something we've wanted to do a lot more this season, but for various reasons it sort of didn't really allow us to at different stages. And it really came about. She trained with the Fremantle Doctors and they're listed as a train on. One of the things that they really wanted to see with her develop was her versatility in other roles. So we wanted to facilitate that if we could. As I said, we didn't quite get a chance through the season as much as I would like to, because I love trying to help the girls, progress. We did that with Noah McNaughton earlier on, and we thought Tiani would have a real chance of doing this if we could give her more responsibility, more versatility. So it's really come out of that. She loves doing it. Earlier in the game, I think second quarter it was, when she kicked a goal late in the quarter, which was really important for us. That was unauthorised, that one. She just did that herself, so that was pretty special.
Well, any opportunity you take, and they made the most of it, didn't they, in that preliminary final? We won't keep you waiting any longer, David. Big week of training and preparation before the grand final. Congrats on the win yesterday over the reigning premiers at Revo Fitness Stadium, and have yourself one hell of a week leading into Sunday's decider against Swan Districts. Thanks for your time. All the best to the side on grand final day.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, boys. See you this Sunday.
And that was, of course, David Eames, the East Fremantle coach in his first year, no less, through to a grand final. No better way to make your head coaching debut than to make it to a grand final. And I like what he said about, just getting back to work and focusing on the task ahead. You don't want to let that win sink in too much, because there's still one more job to be done, and that's against the all-conquering Swans.
Yeah, you don't want it to be your grand final, and I know that's obviously a lot easier said than done. And they're going to obviously take their time to recover and do what they need to do. Obviously, Swan Districts won't be complaining too much that the winner of that game, had to win it in extra time, hence the advantage of a week off. But I think didn't quite get the time to ask him there. But even the club feel as well. I mean, both East Fremantle and Swan Districts, Rogers and their women's league sides are into the grand final. So from a club feel as well, not just the WAFLW team, there would be great buzz at both those respective teams. And East Fremantle probably go in as underdogs in both of those games as well. But sometimes, as we know in finals, when you get that run on and you play with a bit of freedom, that can work into your favour.
Certainly can. We have got a sensational 6 days coming up before that grand final. But after the break, we're going to recap the preliminary final that had just about everything, including an good old-fashioned golden point period where next score won the game, and the next score was kicked by East Fremantle, and how fitting too, their captain. And we'll talk more on that game right after this here on Around the Waffle. Don't go anywhere. More to come after this.
Take it from me, great things happen at the WAFL.
Valentine roads and goals.
With free entry for kids, future stars on the ground, and a kick to kick at every break. The WAFL is where footy memories start and legends are made. Follow the WAFL on socials or get to a game.
Hey Siri, how to connect Bluetooth to Mac truck?
Sullivan 2, what's your position?
Just a midfielder, mate.
On your left. Oh, come on, get out of the way.
Car Stereo Morley, proudly supplying and fitting quality car stereos for over 15 years, selling top name brands like Alpine, Focal, Rockford Fosgate. From a simple upgrade to complete custom systems, stop in and see Grant and the boys at 61 Russell Street, Morley, or visit us online at carstereo.com.au.
And you're back with us here on Around the WAFL. Paul Persick and Ethan Roth bringing you all the great action from what was a drama-packed weekend in the WAFL and the WAFLW. And, of course, the WAFLW Preliminary Final is where we are going to start. What a contest at Revo Fitness Stadium. The reigning premiers up against a team that no one expected to make it to the Grand Final, let alone the Final Four. But it was the underdogs that stopped the all-conquering Juggernaut and got over the line in extra time, 7-2-44 to 5-8-38. East Fremantle through to the Grand Final by 6 points, and Claremont missing out on the Grand Final for the first time since 2021. But East Fremantle, their own sort of juggernaut rolls on, their fourth Grand Final in 5 years. But gee, this was a WAFLW final that had just about everything.
It was a real classic, wasn't it? It will be remembered for a long, long time. And East Fremantle, they came out hot. Jay Flynn kicked the first goal. She kicked the winner last week, so continued where she left off. And they were really in control the whole way, even though we knew Claremont were always going to fire a shot. They were up by 20 points at three-quarter time when Spalding kicked that goal. And said on the broadcast as well, they're sort of in a position where Claremont have sort of nothing to play for. Well, not everything to play for, but in the sense of that nothing to lose attitude. Jack Schwartz fired them up at three-quarter time, and they really came home late there with Perry kicking a couple of goals as the only inclusion for both sides. So, they did really well to get it to a draw in the end, Claremont, and a lot easier said than done, but they had opportunities to win the game. All they had to do was score when it went to extra time, and I feel like they almost tried too hard to get a goal in the end, if that made sense.
Simple option was to just knock it over the line and just score a point and make East Fremantle work hard from the back line and get another score on the board. And why didn't the back line think that? And I'm afraid to say that was a tactical blunder. I think, working too hard to get that goal and win the match, it could have been just as simple as knocking the ball over the line for a behind. 1 point sometimes makes the difference, and they did not do that, and subsequently they were made to pay the price for it.
Yeah, but even in extra time when all they had to do was get a behind,
exactly.
not a goal. So obviously I know what you're talking about there, but literally any score score wins. And you do wonder, obviously, they would have been briefed and they would have known, very experienced side, but you just wonder if they well and truly knew that. But having said that, credit to East Fremantle. I've never seen their side be able to defend on the last line of defence so much in such a situation like that as them. And they got the ball moving forward. Off the deck went Olivia McKay, and she played a blinder of a game as a young player and set up Teakle for that last shot there. But a lot happened before that moment, and Mac Webb was extraordinary, really, against a former side, against her sister. on the opposing
There would
side.
have been quite some conversation at the table after that match, I can imagine, with sister versus sister going out and only one going through to the grand final.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mac Webb, obviously, I'm glad she's made that decision, and likewise with the likes of Macaulay and company coming from other WAFL clubs in the end. So, East Fremantle, the underdogs of this season, go through to the decider. Not many people would have saw that coming, as we said.
We even said they were bottom three this year, but they can rise to expectations. We take our hat off to them. And David Eames, he was in tears after the game, being there at the ground like yourself. Seeing David Eames all emotional after that, knowing that this win means a lot to him and the club, really shows that this team have been through the ringer, and they've come through the ringer with flying colours, and they're into a grand final. And we mustn't forget as well, and people tend to lose sight of this, East Fremantle, having been from the ringer at the start of the season to a grand final, they've been used to it. 4 grand finals in 5 years, just an incredible run that they have had. No one thought this run was going to go on, yet it did, and they stopped the run themselves.
Yeah, and they've only got 3 players who've played in every grand final as well, so there's been a lot of turnover. Zoe Kelly comes in and has 39 hitouts as a young player and gets the better of Matilda Husband. Obviously had support from Repacholi down forward and in the ruck as well, but that's just an example of a young player coming through and playing really above the level. East Fremantle, you could go through their whole lineup really, but Claremont, I thought when they chucked Hannah Seaborn into the ruck in the last quarter, that changed things up.
It did, yeah,
a little bit. Unfortunately, Husband wasn't really getting it done in there, but obviously a really experienced player and was still vital, her presence out there. But Claremont's an interesting one. Obviously, they don't get the 3-peat. They do finish top 2. They go out in straight sets. We can't say it's a failure by any means, but I think because they've set such lofty standards for themselves and haven't got to a grand final for the first time in 5 years, you have to say, obviously, they didn't get the desired outcome in the end.
Their whole season wasn't a failure, but their performance on Sunday was, in spite of the last quarter. And credit to Claremont, they came back in that last quarter. We knew they would. But those first 3 quarters, they're gonna have to live with that. They got second to the football. They weren't making any great decisions when taking the ball out of halfback. They were rushing their disposal. Husband wasn't getting a lot of follow-up done. They had to rely on Campo and Perry, the new inclusion into the side for that game, to apply the scoreboard pressure, and they didn't get a lot. Ortlett, meanwhile, I'm afraid to say she didn't have her kicking boots on. 3 behinds. Any one of those, especially in the second half, could have won the match.
Yeah, we don't often associate that to Rachel, particularly in finals deep in the season. Beck Anderson also held goalless as well, but a couple of good shepherds on the last side of the forward line to see the goal through. So, yeah, she contributed in other ways, but Claremont, they obviously have to lick their wounds. I think, obviously they would have loved to win the 3-peat, no denying of that. I think the learning is going to be invaluable for them. They haven't really tasted losing too much.
No.
And I think for the wider competition as well, it is somewhat refreshing to see that there's 2 other teams in the grand final as well. But I'm sure Claremont obviously been good sports about it as well. But
they won't lose much of their core players, won't they? Because they'll keep going on. Harkin, Seaborn, we talked about, Matilda Husband, Hayley Bullis, who hadn't been in a WAFLW field for 4 years, went to Claremont and just picked up where she left off. So I reckon if Claremont are going to be back at the grand final next year, they'd want to retain a good core stock of their playing group and keep that experience there, like the Ortlips. Harkin, obviously, unlucky not to be in an AFLW system. She played well in that West Coast practice match against Collingwood a few weeks ago. So I reckon a good core is going to be retained by Claremont if they're to get back into the grand final.
And you got Matilda Sargent back from an ACL. Obviously, they lost Juliet Kelly as
and Claire
well.
Ortlip from an ACL too.
Absolutely. So they have been hit by injuries a little bit as well. It is hard to be critical of a team that went 13-3 this year, but they did seem a bit more beatable in the home and away season, obviously with those 3 losses. But even other games, the Perth game comes to mind where they only got it over the line by 3 points in the end. So 13-3, you can't be too critical of that. But East Fremantle actually got them 2 out of the 3 games in the season in the end, and got the one that mattered most.
Absolutely, after extra time in one of the most dramatic finals that anyone can remember. And a huge thanks as well to all the numbers that we had on the Around the Waffle breakdown as well. The response from that, incredible. Thank you so much, guys. We really do appreciate it. The breakdown will be back next Sunday with the grand final. We'll break down the WAFLW Grand Final between East Fremantle and Swan Districts, and we'll give an early look at this grand final. We've got a special on-location preview coming up later in the week here on Around the Waffle, so keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. What do you think this grand final is going to come down to? Having an early look at it, Swan Districts fresh off the week off, then East Fremantle come along, a team that maybe Swan Districts didn't expect to make in the grand final, but they wouldn't mind given the way East Fremantle won it. This one could go down to who has more of the football, who has the better desire, and who's going to be the more hungrier, who wants it more.
Yeah, I think there's no denying Swan District's going very warm favourites for this one. 12 months ago, obviously, the grand final heartbreak, they'll be better for that on the big stage, and obviously they've got to stop the midfield of Cox, of Henry, the Dara Kerr favourite. They bat very, very deep in there across the back line. The likes of Isabel Edgley's obviously come to the forefront. The captain Jelmy, Gemma Sly, but up forward, I mean, any team that can't get a look into Emily Maguire. I mean, she was an emergency for the first final. If they go unchanged, she's going to miss out because they've got other premier forwards up there like Edwards, Sharp, the two reigning Joanne Huggins award winners.
Don't forget Summer Yaron as well. She's having a bit of a breakout period in her
Shay
career.
Yaron as well.
Yaron, yeah.
You've got Chloe Riley as well. Like, they just bat so deep. So Swan District's on warm favourites, but I mean, East Fremantle, they just keep on keeping on, don't they, as well? And again, that underdog tag, I think they're going to go in as big underdogs. But we know what Swan Districts did last year as big underdogs, albeit not winning. They were able to take it up. So it really does come down to who can play better on the day and who can deal with the pressure.
It'll be a battle of attack versus defence. East Fremantle, the best back line in the competition. Swan District's the best forward line in the competition. And it's going to be about who's going to be the more effective. If East Fremantle keeps Swan Districts to, say, less their usual quota of goals, they're averaging around about 7 or 8 in 2026, and that could go a long way to them winning the game. But Swan Districts would want to win it with a blistering first half, and that's what they've been well known for, especially with the weapons that you mentioned in that forward line. The likes of Yaron, Maguire and company can really apply scoreboard pressure early, and they'd want to win it in the first half, I'd think.
Yeah, and we probably don't expect too many team changes from their respective last finals, because obviously the Rogers are into the grand final as well, so which probably makes selection a bit easier.
It gives them more flexibility on selection as well, because if you drop for the league, you could possibly go into the Rogers Cup grand final. So it's a rare situation.
It sure is, and I dare say the whole clubs are going to be getting behind them as well. Obviously, imagining a bus with both grades in it, and Fremantle Community Bank Oval's going to be pumping.
Oh, it certainly is, and of course you're going to be one of the voices of it. Congrats once again, your second straight grand final. I have been told that St John's Medical Services is going to have 5 ambulances at the ground at Fremantle Oval, just in case you need a bit of CPR, because this man could go off at any minute.
We'll look forward to bringing all the action on 7+. Make sure to tune in 205, and of course the Rogers Cup, Heart Sport Rogers Cup as well, live on the WAFL official YouTube channel. Jace Gabriel to bring everyone that to fruition as well. So the same two teams, and you hope that from both teams' sake they can get both grades over the line. Otherwise, it could be a bit awkward in the celebrations if one team wins and one team doesn't. But we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Anything can happen on grand final day, and it usually does. Once again, congratulations to East Fremantle on an amazing preliminary final win through to the grand final against Swan Districts. I'll have a special preview of that here on Around the WAFL later in the week, and I'll be on the media call putting together a special on-location piece with both captains for Swan Districts and East Fremantle. So be on the lookout for that one. We're going to clear a break, and when we do come back, we'll have a look at all the round 19 action of the Sullivan Logistics WAFL Premiership season, and have a chat with reigning Premiership coach Craig White, who got the Bulldogs back on winning terms in the People's Derby on Saturday, and now face a must-win against the Premiership favourites if they are to keep their Premiership defence intact. Craig White to join us next here on Around the WAFL.
Take it from me, great things happen at the WAFL.
Valentine rides and goals.
With free entry for kids, future stars on the ground, and a kick to kick at every break. The WAFL is where footy memories start and legends are made. Follow the WAFL on socials or get to a game.
Hey Siri, how to connect Bluetooth to Mac truck?
Sullivan 2, what's your position?
Just a midfielder, mate.
On your left. Oh, come on, get out of the way.
Stereo Morley. Proudly supplying and fitting quality car stereos for over 15 years. Selling top-name brands like Alpine, Focal, Rockford Fosgate. From a simple upgrade to complete custom systems. Stop in and see Grant and the boys at 61 Russell Street, Morley. Or visit us online at carstereo.com.au.
And you're back with us here on Around the Waffle. Paul Persick and Ethan Roth bringing you all the great action from the weekend. You're checking us out on YouTube and where you get your podcast. Hey, don't forget, special preview show for the WAFLW Grand Final later in the week. So keep your eyes and ears peeled on our socials. It's all thanks to our fine folks at Grant's Car Stereo, District Promotions down at East Vic Park, Sullivan Logistics, specialists in WA transportation for well over 30 years, and of course, Front Row Screen Sport, the best in the business when it comes to live sport and LED screens. Craig White, the South Fremantle coach, will join us in just a moment. But first of all, Rothy, your Colts report, round 19, and we see the top three all but settled.
Yeah, we do, and there were some mixed results. We probably weren't expecting the derby between the Sharks and the Bulldogs to be the furthest game apart, but it was a 44-point win to the Sharks. So they really stunned the Bulldogs at home, and a tough day, obviously, for the Sharks' other sides, but. Yeah, 44-point win. Ben Wood kicking 5 goals. Probably a player that hasn't got the opportunity, or didn't get the opportunity that he would like in the State 18s, but he's a player that can certainly break open a game, and with finals looming, he could be electric in the forward line. West Perth, 22-point win over East Perth. Was a bit shaky there for a little bit, but West Perth, they're going to play finals now, so they'll be in a 22-point win for them. I was on the call for the Perth Swan Districts game. It was back and forth. Both these teams won't feature in September, but you could only tell that there was one ladder position between them. A 3-point win in the end for the visitors, the Black Ducks. Their second win for the year over over Perth, and they haven't lost in over 5 appearances. And then you were on the call in Albany, 8-point upset for Subiaco, a game that they needed to win. Then Claremont, we know obviously they've got a couple of their State 18s players playing in the league side, but 8-point win for Subiaco, that'll build a bit of relief for them.
It certainly will, and that as a result, Claremont can't finish higher than third now. The top place will be decided between the two Fremantle teams this coming weekend, and we'll have more of that in our special preview show this coming weekend. I tell you what, Rothy, that's going to be a big weekend in WAFL Colts football, and so will the league. We'll have a recap of round 19 shortly, but we're going to be joined now by the reigning Premiership coach who, after the loss to East Perth in round 18, got the perfect response from his charges in the People's Derby against East Fremantle thanks to a big third term, and now his side faces a do-or-die clash with Premiership favourites Peel Thunder. Craig White joins us now on Around the Waffle to dissect that great win. Hello, Craig.
Hello, Paul. Hello, Ethan. Thanks for having me on.
Great to have you on the show. I'll ask you off the bat, after the performance in the mud against East Perth in round 19, was that the response you were looking for in the Derby to really put the Sharks out after half-time?
Yeah, it was. We were obviously looking to, for a response from probably a couple of weeks' efforts, to be honest. The game before against West Coast Eagles wasn't perfect as well, and we had a couple of focus areas that we wanted to work on, and the guys were able to execute for the most part. So it was good to get a few troops back and get a run into them as well.
You must be pretty happy you've got Trey Rusco back before hopefully finals.
Yeah, that's right, Ethan. It just shows that the quality player he is. He probably did need the one game the week before just to kind of get a cider of it, but his ability to kind of hit the scoreboard, but also I think he had 4 assists and set up a few more as well. So he's a quality player, and thankfully he's back and in a bit of form going into this week.
He wasn't the only big return, wasn't he? With Matty Parker, just continues to spark up that midfield, and he picks up where he leaves off every time, and he really showed that he could still really give plenty in that midfield, despite what has been for Matty Parker a disjointed season.
Yeah, for sure. The boys just walk a little bit taller when Matty's out there, and the energy and the excitement that he brings. But we just love his pressure and his contest work around the footy, and was on show on the weekend. And again, he's just another one that's got to run under his belt and hopefully into a little bit of form coming into the game this weekend against Peel.
Now, you mentioned Peel. They're obviously minor premiers this year. They will be. And you can finish as high as a double chance, or you could miss out on the 5 altogether. So I guess the good thing is destiny is in your own hands. But having said that, it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, the way it's fallen, it's kind of a good spot to be in terms of the destiny in our hands, and look, we don't want to realistically rely on other results. We just want to try and get the job done, and we'll try and dissect what West Coast were able to do on the weekend and see if we can implement something similar to be able to take it up to them and hopefully get the win.
I understand from that derby last Saturday there were concerns as far as injuries were Noah Strom and Jordan Bollineau. Well, what's the latest there if you've got any information on those two?
Yeah, Bollineau unfortunately was concussed, so he'll go into protocols from there and miss a couple of weeks. And Strom was an ankle roll where we just had another body come across him, so wasn't being able to come back on during the game, but he's gone for scans today. So I'm just got to the club and just waiting on the medical to kind of give the results to where that's at. But we're kind of hopeful that he can get up and be available again because he was able to, be a good 1-2 punch down there for a while when he was there with Trey and takes a good defender, and he's obviously a quality player to have at our disposal at either end of the ground.
Hamish Free in the ruck, he was a rampaging bull. He took Stranatica to the cleaners. It's so good having a ruckman that can really get the better of their opposition on a consistent basis and not only provide pure good first use to the midfield, but follow up on his own work.
Yeah, that's it. Like that's his one with his ability to follow up after the contest is really first class, and he becomes like an extra midfielder once the ball's on the ground, and he runs, he chases, he tackles, he harasses as well, which not too many big men can do. So, Hamish in form, along with Matty Parker and young Lucas Robinson was able to come in and play a kind of mid-forward role on the weekend. He gives us good flexibility and allows us to play another midfielder forward of the ball and give us a bit more talent down there as well. So with those guys and Hamish in good form, hopefully we can get some first use on the weekend.
Now, West Coast were able to knock off Peel for the first time in 11 weeks. Any side were able to do it. They've got so many players that can hurt you. You think of Sharp, Tardru, I guess a mix of AFL-listed, non-listed players, Banfield. The list really does go on. What's the key to stopping them? And I guess you'll have a close look at what West Coast did to be able to do that yourself.
Yeah, I've just finished up our review, so I haven't kind of got into the West one just yet, but that'll be kind of tonight and tomorrow, trying to dissect exactly what they did. But earlier in the year when they beat us, they got us with a lot of good handball and forward handball, kind of similar to the way that obviously Fremantle play at the next level, but just their ability to have just really good solid contribution all over the park. Their backs are super dour, but also really attacking, and then a midfield group with so many weapons in there as you just mentioned, and a forward line that's got multiple avenues to goal. So we're gonna have to be at our best. We're gonna have to execute whatever plan we can try and put in place. But I think most of all, it's really the defensive pressure and then the contest work. If you can match them at the contest and put them under enough pressure to be able to hopefully make them turn the ball over, will give us an opportunity to score and kick a winning score.
All or nothing on Saturday, Craig. Thanks so much for your time here on Around the Waffle. All the best in what's a crunch clash with Peel Thunder on Saturday.
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks, guys.
Craig White joining us here on Around the Waffle. Huge game, that one, it is going to be. But let's get straight into the Round 19 recap. Rothy, Sullivan Logistics WAFL Premiership season, the penultimate round of competition. We'll start off with the Derby, and it was a blistering third term that set up a big victory for South Fremantle over their crosstown rivals, 15-8-98 to 9-10-64. The third quarter really paved the way for South Fremantle to open up the floodgates, not just through Rusco, but also Free and Sam Otto, who bobbed in with a couple of goals to give South Fremantle a very important victory.
Yeah, I think Otto's been a real find this year. Obviously, he can play multiple ends of the ground there, but this was the first derby at the Good Grocer Park since round 9, 2021. So over 5 years between any derbies between these sides at the ground. So a bit of a different look and feel. In early days, the sides were very accurate, weren't they? And 3 goals apiece. But as you said, the middle of the game, I guess South Fremantle started to get on top and showed us why they are the reigning pro. I mean, you kind of always felt that might have been the way. Obviously, young group with East Fremantle. They would have been, it's the People's Derby. It's the oldest sort of traditional rivalry in WA football. So they knew from the outset it was going to be hot, but I think once the game sort of settled down, it went very much the way on South Fremantle's terms.
Well, you'd have to say there were some positives as well for East Fremantle. Baskerville coming back, very handy with 25 disposals. Cleaver continuing on his good form, very versatile, 23 disposals and 3 goals. Could pocket a Sandover vote in this game. Brodaric and Grills from the back line all got plenty of the football. Robinson kicked a couple of goals. Oscar Smart not at his best with 4 straight behinds. But as you said, and I will agree, when the game settled down, when it was there to be won, South Fremantle took the most of their chances and made it count. Rusco with 4 goals, Bletchington with 28, and Matty Parker, and Craig White summed it up well. When Parker's in the side, the rest of the midfield grow 10 feet taller and they put in a little extra more intensity. Without Parker there, the spark hasn't been there this year, but when Parker has been in the side, they gain a little more, and they showed that in that third quarter when they kicked 8 goals, and they never looked back, didn't they?
Yeah, he's only played the 6 games this year, but he's still averaging around about that 25 disposal mark, and it feels like every time he does get a bit of continuity, something comes up, whether it be injury, suspension, what have you, or just, a bit of conditioning and awareness. He's had obviously hamstring issues. So, South Fremantle obviously needed to win this game. They did that. It wasn't, an absolute perfect game on their behalf, but at this stage of the year, you need to be winning games. And I don't think anyone would have been associating that South Fremantle have to win in the last round to make finals after the game. They lost one game last year on the way to the Premiership. But, obviously other sides are improving and they've been a bit inconsistent. But luckily, Trey Rusco comes back. That's their key focal point. So better late than never, they'll say.
Absolutely. But obviously the two injury concerns for South Fremantle. Noah Strom with an ankle. That is getting checked out as we speak, as Craig White alluded to. And Jordan Bollineau concussed and will miss that game against Peel Thunder and the first final if South Fremantle go on and make the 5. So that's the only two concerns that the Bulldogs have got. But they did have the win, and that's exactly what they needed over East Fremantle by 34 points. And then from one derby to another, the Derby Light, if you will, the Alignment Derby. Peel Thunder, they were looking for 12 straight wins, but the West Coast Eagles burst their bubble and won their 4th straight game, this time by 9 points. And they were in control right from the third quarter, pretty much like South Fremantle in the other game that we mentioned. Third quarter really took hold in favour of the West Coast Eagles, and the likes of McRae, Marriage and Flynn really got the ball rolling in the second half to end Peel's run.
First West Coast win over Peel since 2019.
Wow.
So they've only won 3 games now against the Peel Football Club, and 2 of those came in 2019, so 7 years between drinks.
This is their most important win, would it be fair to say, against the Premiership favourites, to stop a run of 12 straight wins and all of a sudden be in contention for the 5 themselves.
Yeah, and the only team to beat Peel at Lane Group Stadium as well, so another feather into their cap. But more importantly, they kept their finals hopes alive. Barnett with 3, Champion with 2, Datsun with 2. He's been a real find as well, coming off from South Fremantle as a top-up player. Johnson with 2, Dewar, Kerner, Marek, Owie, Schoenberg. They had a lot of goal kickers on the day as well. And Charlie Nichols, if he wasn't out there on return, it was his first game since round 12, and he kicked 4. Left a couple out there as well, but they could have lost by a bit more, the Thunder, in the end.
Yeah, they could have. Peel Thunder didn't have the same firepower up for. They didn't have Tregenza in that side. If they had Tregenza, they would have had that extra tall on the forward line, and maybe the scoreline could have been a little bit different. Davies had 23, but the ball was going down his way a lot in the second half. Bailey Banfield tried his heart out with 22. Jeremy Sharp had 33, but they just didn't fire on the same cylinders as we usually see. It's un-Peel Thunder-like, to lose their way a little bit when they've got such a polished midfield through their depth, and their depth is so good. You can't afford to lose 1 or 2 more midfielders and then lose your way in the finals. So Peel Thunder, I think this serves as a bit of a wake-up call for them.
Yeah, so obviously Sturt and Darcy as well with injury concerns.
Sturt, how unlucky for him.
I know, Owie's on the other end as well, so both teams a little bit of concern there. I don't think it's the worst thing though for Peel Thunder. I think they're obviously going to finish top of the ladder after Claremont lost as well, so that's official no matter what happens from here. I think just to sharpen them up a little bit, as it gets to allude to a bit with Fremantle this year as well. Like it's not the worst. You don't really want to be going into finals with a massive win streak, and I think psychologically for them as well, if they're going to have a bad performance, I'm not saying it was a terrible performance, they lost by 9 points, but if they're going to have a performance that's not at their absolute best, you'd rather have it in round 19 than in a final.
And you don't want to go into the finals with 2 straight losses either. If they lose to South Fremantle, then alarm bells could be ringing. So I reckon Adam Reid will be putting them through a hard week after that performance. But you look at the West Coast Eagles, they were magnificent. Finley McRae with 31, he used the football brilliantly, provided that run through the centre, and he's really been one of the driving forces for the Eagles in midfield, along with Clay Hall, who often goes under the radar. So too Ryan Marriage. And Matt Flynn, he's out of contract, and if he doesn't get an extension by now, further opportunity to prove himself, I don't know what's wrong.
Yeah, he's obviously above the level, but with Bailey Williams doing really well at AFL level, it's hard to get a look in at the moment. And I guess the good thing for Flynn is, though, he's going to keep his spot in the WAFL side if they make finals, because you're not going to be able to get Bailey Williams back into the WAFL side. So if he's going to prove himself for a contract extension, if that decision has been made, then WAFL finals if that beckons. But obviously they need to get their themselves this week. So it does beckon for a mini elimination final against Claremont for them this week.
Of course, we'll look at that game on during the week here on Around the WAFL, so you do not want to miss that one. But the Eagles, 4th win in a row. They're having their best season. They've got 10 wins on the board. First time they've had that since 2019 when they made the finals and got as far as a semi-final in their first year. They have been the big improvers. They really caught everybody off guard this year.
They have as well. And I guess obviously durability helps with that. They've been pretty good on the injury front as well. So, and these guys in recent weeks have really been consistently at WAFL level. So I know there's been calls to get an opportunity at AFL level, but from a continuity point of view at the WAFL level, I think for the top-up players and the local players, a guy like Garrison can have those seasoned players around you consecutively really helps.
It certainly does, and it did help in a big way for the Eagles. Winners by 9 points over Premiership favourites Peel Thunder, stopping their winning run at 11. And if you want to talk about big shock, look that one up. But we got another one coming up later on in our round recap. No real surprise in the Perth Derby at Sullivan Logistics Stadium on a sunny Saturday afternoon. East Perth with a 10-3 first half, never looking back, winning by a massive 64 points over West Perth, 18-11 to 8-7. Perfect way for Tom North to celebrate his 100th game, a Royals win, and now they're contending for the double chance.
Yeah, they sure are, and no great surprises here, but still to put West Perth to the sword after they lost the initial battle earlier in the year, a bit of redemption at a later stage for a tiring West Perth young group. So Tedesco with 31 was brilliant. North, Wright, Sutar as well his stocks continue to rise off the back of a state draft combine. Invite as a mature ager as well, and Medhat and Quet kicked 9 goals between the Middleton, Schofield, also multiple goal kickers as well.
Good for Seb Kawek. That was one of his best performances for a long time in the forward line. I reckon you stick him deep in that forward line, he could take your big marks and kick your big goals. He hasn't really had that opportunity this year, and he has not been in the best form, but what a perfect way to respond.
Yeah, well, we know the athletic profile that got him onto Freo's list for a little while there, and he's got a bit of a point to prove himself as well after being left out of the grand final last year. Obviously, we're not at that stage yet to get the 3. He did play in the reserves premiership, but you want to be in the big league, and he was left out for the grand final, which they lost in the end. So he's got motivation himself on an individual standpoint. But East Perth, they are flying under the radar a little bit. I've been hesitant to sort of label them, grand finalists or anything at a current stage, just from that consistency point of view. But they did what was needed to done against West Perth.
Absolutely. And when Amajuri has gone out of the game, obviously last week due to that concussion that he had on the siren, I reckon Liam Tedesco has stepped up to that number 1 inside midfielder role when Brayshaw and Amajuri have gone out with injury. Because if you think about this, 31 disposals and he took 10 marks, and he combined so well with Sutar in the middle to take 14. If you have 24 marks between them, that really shows how much prowess they've well and truly got, in spite of the 2 number 1s being out there, Amajuri and Hamish Brayshaw still sidelined with injury. So the depth in midfield is still there. It's just all about getting it done on a regular basis.
Yeah, it is. And obviously they're going to be better for the run as well. And there's going to be some pressure selections on as it was last year as well. So they got the better of West Perth. West Perth, I thought Livingston, Bevan, Lynch played well in the end. Livingston, we spoke with Kane Bevan last week. He admitted that his big ruck probably took a little while in his first year at West Perth to get going, but one of his better games for the Falcons in the end. Harvey Sporting guy, 3 goals as well. He's done his draft chances no harm, and will play the last game, then ideally go back to Colts as well. So his year won't be done beyond next week. But
it's not been held goalless since his league debut. It's been an incredible run for Sporting guy.
Yeah, and he wasn't it was interesting coming into the year where he was sort of situated from a draft point of view, but I think he could be in the top 40 calculations now in the country.
If somehow he doesn't get picked up, I reckon that could be good for West Perth, because with the potential exodus of several experienced players that are getting towards the end, if Sporting guy doesn't get picked up, that could be huge for West Perth. They need an extra tall in that forward line. If Keitel somehow decides to go on, that I reckon Sporting guy, his role as an additional tall forward could be a real key for West Perth to go up the ladder.
It sure could be. You cast your mind back to when they lost Jasper Scaife when he was firing for the league side, so it's not a new thing for West Perth, losing key forwards and players for that matter, Sam Swaddling and Jay Farrow off the back of last year as well. So there's positives for West Perth outside of a loss, but obviously they had a win last week, so you've got to take the good with the bad at this time of year when we know that they're clearly not going to be back in the 5.
And we meant to celebrate Aaron Black's 300th game this past weekend, but he got rested and he'll be playing against Perth and what would likely be his last game.
Yeah, huge congratulations. Obviously it's a modern day feat that probably won't be done anytime soon again, you could say. So they'll celebrate him, and hopefully they can spoil Perth's little finals aspirations or double chance aspirations, I should say.
Absolutely. But East Perth, they got the job done in the end, 64-point winners over West Perth. And then, as if any other indication of this year's WAFL football has been so drunk this year, we go to Revo Fitness Stadium, and Subiaco, out of nowhere, defeating Claremont, making Claremont 5 losses at home this season. And Subiaco had to stave off a late final term comeback to win by a point. Just unbelievable. They're the heart attack kings, Subiaco. That's their 11th game where they have, been decided by less than 10 points. They're now 6-5 in the ledger. Unbelievable. And somehow they can still be in the 5.
Yeah, it looks very unlikely, but they certainly did their chances of keeping ever so slightly ajar. No harm, and upset Claremont in the end. You were obviously on the call for it, back and forth, and Claremont came late, but Subiaco hold on.
How good were the Lions in the first half? I mean, that was a first half they needed to have against a stacked side like Claremont. They run and carry through midfield, led by the likes of Corbett. McGowan was terrific, so was Gyro and the Hickmott boys, playing their usual roles. And they really caught Claremont napping napping for most of that first half because Claremont, they weren't showing enough at the football. They didn't get the better of Subiaco in the contested football. They let Subiaco control the game in a lot of areas. Even though Claremont were leading in most of them, they weren't exactly controlling the game in them, in marks and tackles and inside 50s. Subiaco had more of those inside 50s up to half time, and they led by 3 goals at the long break. And especially when you have the likes of Eastland not being able to get it done most of the time. England had a lot of possessions, but he wasn't as effective. DeLacy didn't get going until the second half. Same thing with Tyson Headland in the second half. So Claremont were playing catch-up all day. And I'd say they weren't lucky to get within a point, but I reckon the margin could have been a little greater if Subiaco had went on with it after three-quarter time. They led them back in.
They had a lot of contributors across the ground in that Subiaco. I thought it was Jacob Light's one of his better games down back as well, with 9 marks as well. So starting to find some form towards the back end of the year. He's been there for the most part, but good to see him nail down that sort of full back position. And Subiaco, they keep it ever so slightly ajar. Obviously, they'll be kicking themselves about that West Coast game because they could be on 40 points right about now. But Claremont let one slip. They're still likely to finish with the double chance, but that's still not certain as well. So it makes for a big round 20. But good to see Heath Melody and George Gale be up to level as well. You'd think they would hold their place against West Coast, considering the Colts and reserves have a bye.
Well, Heath Melody was listed by WAFL as one of Amy's leading young players in the league side this week, and well-deserved too. Heath Melody, Lark medalist, All-Australian captain, State 18's co-captain. Great first game, baptism of fire, against a Subiaco side hell-bent on making the 5, but, it's good getting those miles in and possibly getting drafted later in the year.
Yeah, and there's probably no better way to further prove yourself than against AFL-listed players in a do-or-die game this week as well, so that'll be the next task for those boys.
Certainly is going to be huge, but huge for Subiaco as well, 1-point winners. By the way, of course, another big blow for Claremont. Zach Waring got heavily concussed going back with the flight of the ball against 2 Subi players, got absolutely flattened and did not move, and he will miss the next couple of games, including that Claremont qualifying final, because they'll host the qualifying final regardless of what happens, but no Zach Waring for the next couple of games at least, so that's a massive blow for the Tigers.
It is a massive blow, certainly not disregarding that, but at least it's happened now. If you can look at it for positive, obviously they're going to, as you said, be in the final, so at least he's not missing a grand final or anything of that nature.
Absolutely. Claremont, however, 5 losses from home games this year. Certainly un-Claremont-like, but in the end the Lions got it done by a point. They still can make the 5, as unlikely as it may seem, but they can still make it. Perth also, they are still in the fight for the double chance, but they really had to fight hard against Swan Districts, and in the end the result wasn't decided until the last 10 minutes, where Perth kicked away to a 19-point win, 14-10 to 11-9 against the gallant Swan Districts side, and in the end it was led by that man again, Aaron Clark, with a bag of 5.
Sure was. It was a bit of a shootout with Coleman kicking 4 at the other end, I guess the young and the old there, but Perth, they did what they needed to do, jumped out of the box early with 6 goals to 1, and Swan Districts fired back late. You thought it could go anyway at three-quarter time, really, but the class of Perth prevailed on in the end in front of their loyal Red Lake fans.
Absolutely. Last home game for the regular season for the Demons, and they went out in style as far as that as well. Not just Clark getting in amongst the goals. He kicked 5, as I said, but Byrne leading with 27 touches. Austin Davis, he played more a bit in midfield, spent a bit of time down back, but situated himself more in midfield. He had over 30 disposals. Zach Harding with 25 hit-outs, that is. Josh Edwards, he made his return after being a late withdrawal last week. He had 16 disposals, and Perth really gelled in the first 3 quarters, although Swans really challenged through the likes of Coleman, who kicked 4, as you said. C-Pro with 40 disposals by Jingos. That was a massive game from him. And Lucas Impey holding his own in the ruck. They were never out of the contest, Swan Districts. It was only those final 10 minutes, but that's been the story of their season.
Yeah, there was some big ball winners, wasn't there? Cipro, he could win their best and fairest, to be honest.
I think he will.
He might.
He will.
Will be neck and neck in the
take it to the bank.
Swan medal.
He will. He'll win it.
Jarvis Pena with 34, Austin Davis with 32, Blake Kelly 30 in his first year, Corey Byrne with 27 as well. Jesse Turner got plenty of the ball, so no shortage of mids getting their fair share of the pill in the end. And Swan District's Lee Coleman, he kicks bags week after week, and it makes you think who's coming up underneath him in a way, because he's 34 years of age. Not saying he won't go around next year, and it's great what he's doing, but it feels like they're not in games unless he kicks a bag, and they lost this and he still kicked 4.
I tell you what, Lorenz Cole has got to be on the radar for a possible league debut. He kicked a couple of goals in the Colts game he did earlier in the day, so I reckon the Swans have got to be looking at him for a possible league call-up, maybe in the last game of the year against East Fremantle, or even in the early rounds of next year.
Yeah, you probably think it's a bit further along for him, but obviously the reserves are in a good position, top of the ladder as well. Hopefully there can be some breakout performance in September for them to really put their for their name for 2027.
Absolutely. Perth getting the job done by 19 points in the last game of round 19. We go to the ladder. And hold on to your hats. We have got a big finals race coming up with one round to go. Peel Thunder, they're still on top. Claremont, they won't lose second place. So it's all down to third, fourth and fifth. Perth, East Perth and South Fremantle in that order and on 40 points as well, but outside the 5 on percentages. West Coast, Subiaco still in contention, but they're a win behind. So anything can happen. Two teams could end up on 10 wins and miss the 5. Talk about drama with the last round still to come.
Yeah, I guess the good thing for Subiaco is they do have a healthy percentage of 104, which is more than West Coast one, but obviously they're a game behind as well. So Swans, East Fremantle, West Perth, they're the only teams that mathematically can't make it as well. So 6 has to go into 5. We'll wait to see how it pans out.
Absolutely. No one is safe in that 3rd, 4th and 5th bracket and a big last round to come. Time for the votes, Rothy, and let's get it started with a big ruckman. Fraser Rickson. Now, he held his own against Ollie Easton. He knew he was going to be in for a tough test, but his first use to his midfielders in Hickmott and Corbett I thought was magnificent, especially in the first 3 quarters of their win against Claremont. So he got 1 vote. 2 votes. Thomas Medhat, what a bag of goals he kicked, but I reckon most of them were easy goals because West Perth's defence really lacked for much of that day, and Medhat was able to get some very good easy goals, very opportunistic as well, and he got 2 votes, but Aaron Clark did a little bit more. Swan District's backline really was stingy for much of that game, but he still found a way and kicked 5 goals, and he got the 3 votes. So Aaron Clark, 3 votes from Perth. 4 votes. Gee, he's running amok. Finley McRae, what form he has been on. He's averaging over 30 disposals over the last month, and he keeps racking up votes. He could be one of West Coast best vote getters in the sand of a medal.
Could be a smoky.
Maybe. Could be come September, but he's having a wonderful season. He's Finley McRae, and he's showing why he's going to be at the next level before too long. But the top gun this week, Hamish Free in the People's Derby, over 50 hit-outs. When he is given a task, he fulfills it with flying colours. And Craig White gave him a task to take Luke Stranatica to the cleaners. And when that 3rd quarter came about, he was the real foundation for South Fremantle, running away with the game. His midfielders, his on-ballers, like, of course, Bletchenden and even a couple of others like Jones and Robinson, who has been back in the side in recent weeks. Hamish Free was the instigator in South Fremantle's revival. So a job well done to him. He gets the 5 votes. Now time for the leaderboard with 1 round to go, and it looks like this. Charlie Dean remains on top, 2 votes ahead of Bailey Rogers, who's a vote ahead of Lockie Tardrew. Then comes Finley McRae into the top 4. Then Jack Cleaver, Angus Scott in the 6, and then 7 through to 10, Hamish Free, Brendan Parfitt, Hugh Davies, and Jarvis Pena. Note, 7th through to 10th are out of contention. It's a 6-way fight for the player of the year with 1 round remaining. There it is. These are the 6 players that can still win it, and they're separated by one straight lot of 5 votes. We could possibly have a tie after next week.
I say it's a fair chance, and all those players there in for big matchups for their respective sides as well. So it's going to be a grandstand finish, as it has been in multiple ways across both the WAFL and WAFLW votes, games, matchups, you name it.
No doubt about it. Fans, if you think one of these players is going to win the Player of the Year, which one of these fighting 6 do you think is going to take out the medal for the Player of the Year? Let us know on our Facebook and Instagram pages and on the comments below on our Around the WAFL YouTube channel. It's a big week coming up, and it's a big September coming up because we've got this. Oh yeah, Finals Edition. We are just a week or 2 away from Around the WAFL Finals Edition, and by gee, it is going to be huge. And also on location, building up to the Grand Final, Rothy. It is going to be one hell of a week leading into Sunday afternoon.
Best time of year, isn't it? So
yeah.
Bring it on Fremantle Community Bank Oval for the WAFLW Grand Final. Check it out on 7+ if you're not there at the ground. And before that, obviously, some big matchups to see what sides learn their fate come September in the men's.
Absolutely. Rothy, we'll see you very soon, and all the best for Sunday.
Thank you.
And we might need 5 ambulances just to be sure. Listeners and viewers, we really appreciate your company this week here on Around the WAFL, our recap show. Big thanks to David Eames and Craig White for joining us, and a big thanks to our wonderful partners for 2026 as well. Grant's Car Stereo, Front Row Screen Sports, Sullivan Districts and District Promotions. We're going to be on the road this week as we build up to the Grand Final, East Fremantle and Swan Districts in the WAFLW. We'll see you later this week. Bye for now.